When President-elect Donald Trump walked onto the floor at Madison Square Garden for UFC 309 last weekend, the packed 20,000-person crowd cheered louder than they did for most of the actual fights. This raucous reaction wasn't because the crowd was surprised to see Trump. After all, the Donald has been a UFC fan for decades. He famously allowed the UFC to host events at his hotels and casinos when no one wanted to be associated with MMA in the early 2000s. In fact, he's such a close ally to the sport that UFC President Dana White literally left his family vacation in Italy to fly 14 hours to Milwaukee to give a 10-minute speech introducing Trump at the Republican National Convention in July, explaining exactly how he would do anything for Donald Trump.
So 2 weeks ago, I got a call from President Trump asking me if I'd be willing to speak tonight. As usual, there was no pressure, no demands. He asked me as a friend, and of course I said yes. Then, after I accepted his offer, he sent me a text message, and I just want to read to you a little piece of what President Trump wrote to me. Dana, I'm so honored that you will be doing the introduction at the National Republican Convention. Think of it as the biggest fight you ever had, a fight for our country and even the world. I only wish you didn't have to interrupt your family trip, but I hope they understand they love you and they know how important this is. Now think about this. This man's running for president of the United States. He's fighting for the future of this country, and he's concerned about interrupting my family trip.
Now, Trump has attended dozens of UFC events, but this past weekend's visit to the Octagon was different for a few reasons. For starters, it was his first public appearance since winning the 2024 election, and more importantly, he brought some friends along with him. Elon Musk, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and for some reason, Kid Rock. A who's who of Trump's biggest loyalists and supporters. I guess Tucker Carlson's invite got lost in the mail. Depending on your political beliefs, it would be like being in the studio while We Are the World was being recorded or seeing the Dream Team play in the Olympics. But while everyone was focused on Trump's increasingly large political entourage, no one seemed to notice that another one of the world's most powerful men was sitting right beside him. No, not Kid Rock. I'm talking about Yasir Al-Rumayyan. Al-Rumayyan has spent the last several years ingratiating himself in the world of professional sports, leveraging Saudi Arabia's deep pockets to curry favor with league commissioners and CEOs of Formula One, UFC, WWE, professional golf, and European soccer. Yasir Al-Rumayyan has quickly gone from a relatively unknown person to someone who touches and influences almost every sports league worldwide. But before we dive into Al-Rumayyan's story, we need to understand the money behind him, or rather, the country behind him, Saudi Arabia. Home to the largest airport in the world, the largest continuously sandy desert in the world, and most importantly, the highest producer of oil in the world. The country's state-controlled oil company Saudi Aramco produces over 10 million barrels of crude oil each day, reporting a profit of $121.3 billion last year. That's over $332 million in daily profits. That kind of bankroll makes Jeff Bezos seem like he's on welfare. Saudi Aramco now trades at a market cap of Dr. Evil proportions at $1.8 trillion. That makes it the world's sixth most valuable publicly traded company and the only non-US based company within the top 15 other than TSMC, the Taiwanese chipmaker that counts Apple and Nvidia as clients. Clearly, Saudi Aramco is a money printing machine, but the oil business has changed a lot over the last few years, highlighting that the country of Saudi Arabia has become too reliant on fossil fuels. It's not uncommon for oil to account for over 40% of Saudi Arabia's total GDP in a given year. So when oil prices sharply declined throughout the 1980s, Saudi entered a multi-decade recession. The competition in the oil business has heated up as well. For the past 6 years, the United States has produced more crude oil than any other country, and President-elect Donald Trump ran on a platform to widen that gap even more, using the catchphrase "drill, baby, drill" any chance he could get.
We're gonna drill, baby, drill. We will drill, baby, drill. And we will drill, baby, drill. We're gonna drill, baby, drill. And we will drill, baby, drill. Frack, frack, frack. I've been saying drill all my life. I'm saying we're gonna drill.
With that in mind, it makes perfect sense why Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman announced the Saudi Vision 2030 plan nearly a decade ago. Within this proposal, the phrase increasing non-oil trade and investment came up a few times. But all that really means is that Saudi Arabia wants to reduce their economic dependence on oil by diverting profits from its $900 billion sovereign wealth fund into sports and entertainment. Saudi Arabia isn't trying to say it's looking to become the next sports capital of the world. Its real goal is to use sports as a wedge for tourism, hoping to become a destination like Dubai. The Crown Prince kicked off this process by loosening some of the country's more controversial and dated rules. Women would be allowed to drive. The religious police would be abolished. Male guardianship laws would be ditched. Segregation in restaurants would end. And more public entertainment, like the opening of movie theaters and all-night concerts, were now permitted. Compared to what things were like just a decade ago, Saudi Arabia now looks like a much different country today. But the loosening of laws was only step one of the multi-decade plan described in Saudi Vision 2030. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman got a case of keeping up with the Smiths fever, realizing some of the country's rules had to be changed if they wanted to become more like their eastern neighbor, Dubai. But he also had to give tourists a reason to visit, which brings us back to Yasir Al-Rumayyan. The Saudi businessman has a resume that would make even the most cringy LinkedIn influencers jealous. Governor of Saudi Arabia's $900 billion Public Investment Fund, or PIF for short. Chairman of Saudi Aramco, the aforementioned money-printing state-owned oil company worth $1.8 trillion. He's also sat on the board of some of the world's most valuable companies, including Uber and SoftBank. And unofficially, he's widely recognized, both domestically and internationally, as the right hand of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And if you thought Al-Rumayyan had too much on his plate already, the Crown Prince gave him a new mandate: invest in sports assets to soften the country's image and increase tourism. This wasn't just some task given to him by his boss without any true power either. Yasir Al-Rumayyan was armed with more cash than any single person in the world because he had direct access to the country's sovereign wealth fund, a stockpile that, if you remember correctly, grows by $332 million every damn day. Combining the Crown Prince's directive with a literal money spigot, Yasir immediately got to work. As of today, Saudi Arabia has already invested over $10 billion in sports. This includes more publicized deals, like spending over $2 billion on the Saudi Pro League and the creation of Live Golf. But it also includes a lot of less publicized deals, including Saudi Arabia buying Newcastle United FC for $408 million in 2021, and the country's 10-year hosting and sponsorship agreements with WWE and Formula One, collectively worth more than $1.5 billion in cash. They've also invested tens of millions in deals across men's and women's professional tennis, not to mention the fact that many consider Saudi Arabia a lock to host the 2034 FIFA Men's World Cup. Some of these deals include exclusive events hosted in Saudi Arabia, while others are structured just to get them a seat at the table. But no matter how these deals are written, it's clear that Saudi Arabia's government doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon. This push into sports couldn't have come at a better time either. Sports organizations worldwide are searching for ways to diversify revenue as the media rights environment becomes more challenging, and Saudi's Scrooge McDuck-level pile of cash is exponentially bigger than what a league or team could have gotten from similar sponsorship deals. Is it sports washing? Well, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman certainly thinks so.
What do you say to the people who charge that that's part of sports washing, that you're trying to use all of that to somehow improve or somehow affect your image in the
Well, if it's sport washing going to increase my GDP by 1%, and then we'll continue doing sport washing.
Whether the Crown Prince cares about the sports washing label or not, even the most pro-Saudi individuals will tell you that shifting resources toward tourism would have been a waste of time without significant cultural shift inside and outside of the country. And regardless of all the recent changes in Saudi law, athletes and organizations have already shown us they will look past human rights violations if it means making more money for themselves and their shareholders. Does that make any of this right? No. But it doesn't mean it's going to stop anytime soon. Al-Rumayyan has spent the last several years cultivating relationships with some of the most powerful people in pro sports. Watching the 2018 World Cup with FIFA President Gianni Infantino, private meetings in the Bahamas with Tiger Woods and Jay Monahan, sitting cageside with Dana White at UFC fights. In just a few years, Yasir Al-Rumayyan has used Saudi Arabia's bottomless pit of cash to buy his way into the most important rooms in sports. While some people wonder how long this spending spree can last without Saudi Arabia seeing a return on their expensive investment, it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. But in the meantime, keep your eyes peeled for more instances of Al-Rumayyan rubbing elbows with some of the most powerful businessmen and politicians in the world. And also Kid Rock.